All right. Welcome, everybody. It's Joe. Passion Unchained. Passion Unchained. Unchain your passions. So today I'm going to go a little bit more vulnerable into my past, where I came from, and one of the things that defines the way that I see the world. I haven't talked about my dark moments today, and a lot of it is because it involves my family, the people that were closest to me, my mom and my dad, and I've buried the hatchet with them. I'm going to close my computer real quick. If you don't know what that phrase means, bury the hatchet means you've let the conflict go. You've essentially forgiven them, or at least you've decided to let it go. So I guess that's the same as forgiving. It's a synonym for forgiving. And me bringing it up, it's a thing I don't want to do often because it brings it up again for me. It's not something I like to think about, but it's cathartic, and it is something that I want to be in my past, the bad parts of my past. I want to be in a relationship with it where I can, where I don't have to put it in a box. So this in itself, sharing this in this episode in itself will be vulnerable, but probably healing for me. I've alluded to this in a few episodes, and I guess it's just time to go into it. When I was a kid, my parents told me that I was not healthy, that I was not able to be controlled. I was very angry, and that I needed help. I remember being angry. I remember things that I did that were, I threw a lot of tantrums, and not necessarily. Well, I was maybe more than most kids, but I don't have an objective view on that. Maybe it wasn't as much as most kids, because obviously I was me. I was looking out through my eyes when I was a kid, and as I grew up, my parents kept bringing me to doctors over and over again to find me, like, what's wrong with Joe? Why is he this? Why is he that? Why is he so angry? Why is he not focused? Why is he not this? My mom would bring me to doctors over and over again, and they would say, oh, he's just a kid. Oh, he's just, he's just normal. And she would eventually find one that would agree with her, and one would say, oh, okay, well, he has ADD. Let's give him some medication. Or, oh, he has OCD. Let's give him some medication. And my anger kept getting worse. I found out later through therapy that I was angry because I wasn't being accepted. I wasn't being loved. I wasn't being accepted for who I was. There were moments of acceptance, but it was always in the backdrop of an attitude of, let's fix Joe. What's wrong with Joe? Why isn't Joe doing this? Why isn't Joe doing that? Why is Joe so angry? Why is Joe so unreasonable? Why is Joe this? Why is Joe that? Why is Joe making life hard for us? And that was the message I got from my parents, and I was broken. I needed fixing. It got to the point where I had internalized that myself. In 4th grade, my mom found a doctor that would finally give me psychiatric medications. I was 10 years old. He gave me, I believe, Abilify. I don't remember why. I don't remember what it was that they said that I had. But over the years, it was everything. It was almost everything. They diagnosed me with pretty much the whole DSM-5, or 4 or 3, or whatever was the newest one at the time. And I believed at a deep level that I was mentally ill because that's what I was told. I was told that at the deepest. I was told that by the people closest to me over and over and over again. I was told that I would never be independent. I was told that I would always need them. I was told that I would always need doctors, and I was given special treatment. They got me what's called an individual education plan, which is where you talk to the school and they give you, it's called an IEP for short. They give you these specifications. I was even in special ed at one point because I was not able to be controlled, as they said, and I was emotionally disabled. That was something that the school. That was not something my parents said. That was something my parents were trying to get me a specific type of special treatment, and then the school was like, okay, we'll give you special treatment, and then they just gave me like a different kind of special treatment. But my relationship with my parents, except for certain moments, I would say it was 75% what's wrong with Joe? Why isn't Joe this? Why isn't Joe that? And it really got to me to the point where I internalized it. When I was 18, I graduated from high school. I barely graduated on time. There's a lot of chaos. Even more chaos than how they treated me. There was chaos just in the structure of my family. My parents divorced. I don't need to go into too many details of why they divorced, but there was a chaotic law. My mom, I believe, sued my dad, and she tried to turn me and my brother against him, and successfully so. I remember her pulling me aside and say, okay, you're going to tell the lawyers that you want to be with me because you think that dad is not good for you. And she convinced me to say that to the lawyer when he asked me, like, oh, who do you want to be with? It was just really manipulative, and that fucked me up for a long time. And when I graduated high school, barely, with a lot of C's and D's, but I graduated on time, my parents had already had plans for me. They put me in a living skills program in Florida for people on the autistic spectrum, on the Asperger spectrum, because they were like, oh, this guy, like a few doctors, my mom had convinced a few doctors that I had Asperger's. Like she read books, like she had, like, okay, he has all these symptoms, etc. And she had to find a doctor that was convinced, because she kept going from doctor to doctor, and eventually she found one. And so she put me in this life skills program. I was not in a place where I could make my own decisions, because decisions were made for me and they were forced upon me. If I was angry or tried to disagree with my parents, my mom would be like, okay, you need to see your therapist, like your meds aren't working. Or at one point, actually, it was like, oh, we need to like admit you to a mental hospital. I don't remember the specific thing that happened, but it was a common thing. And into my mid-20s, whenever I would disagree or was angry with my mom or with any woman, I had this immense fear, like this immense, like gut-wrenching fear, because for my whole life, whenever I was angry at my mom, she found a way to turn it on me. And so here I am at 21. Thank the fucking Lord. I'm not Christian or religious. Thank fucking God that I had this specific therapist that I worked with when I was in Florida, because she helped me realize what my parents had done to me, how they had treated me, and how I had grown this deep guttural sense of I am wrong. I am completely dependent on other people. I will never be secure in myself. I will never be independent. I will never be healthy. I will never be normal. I was taught that from a very early age, so of course I internalized it, and that was completely wrong. And so thankfully, thank fucking God that I had her as a therapist, because if I didn't, I would have gone even further down the rabbit hole from where I was. And it was not a good look. Thinking back on how unhealthy and how like screwed up my mind was, I do not want to go there and wish it on my worst enemy. But I remember I was, I believe, 21. I had gotten out of the group home. Not the group home. The group home was a different thing. I didn't even mention that. I had gotten out of the living skills program, and I was living on my own. I was still like my expenses were still paid by my dad at the time. My mom wasn't giving me any money. My dad was paying my expenses, and I still had medication. And I decided to get off this medication. And these were psychotropic meds. The last medication, a couple, actually not just psychotropic, it was a low dose of a very powerful, the Seroquel, a very powerful antipsychotic, not for psychosis because it's an off-label use at a low dose for sleep, because I was having insomnia. I'd gotten off the other medications, but this one I had to get off, and I also had to get off Prilosec because from a very early age, this is something I also discovered in therapy, I had acid reflux as a very little kid. And it wasn't just acid reflux, it was all the anger that I was not allowing myself to feel that I had internalized, and it was tearing up my insides, and that was what got out of me. And as I was processing this, it started to heal, but I needed to get off Prilosec, and I could talk about the pharma, what do you call it? The way that Prilosec works in your body and why it's really not a good long-term solution. That's another thing. I'm not a doctor, but I've done a lot of research because in getting off these medications, I had to. But one of the getting off my medication was, so I believe I used to just imagine that this was just chemical. And I believe that my horrendous experience getting off medication was partially chemical and partially psychosomatic, because I had to confront all the emotions that that the ritual of taking medication had done for me, and I had to confront what how my mom had treated me and how my dad had treated me. I had to confront that and all those emotions that I had bottled up inside. I had to confront all of that when I got off my medications, because I no longer had this ritual of taking medications that kind of like kept all these emotions bottled up. I had to face facts. And so I think now when I look back on my experience getting off medications, I would say, I don't know how many percent, but like part of it was the chemical and physical withdrawal of getting off these powerful medications that aren't designed to get off of. And then part of it is the emotional, the deep emotional trauma that was coming up as a result of me getting off the medications, the psychology part of it and the psychosomatic part of it. So Seroquel at low doses acts, it's essentially like, and I'm oversimplifying it, but it's like you take a bunch of Benadryl. It's like you take a few Benadryl. It makes you very tired. It acts as an antihistamine. And so when you get off of it, and this is at low doses. At high doses is an antipsychotic. At low dose, it's also acts as an antihistamine, but at low doses it's like a very potent antihistamine. It's like you take a few Benadryls. And so as I got off of it, my histamine system wasn't working. It was rebooting. It's kind of like bouncing back. And so I got hives all over my body for no reason. All my skin was itchy. My nerves were on fire. Everything was completely inflamed because my histamine system was going fucking wild, because my antihistamine system was broken. I had been using this chemical to I might not be using the right language because, again, I'm not a doctor, but I did a lot of research on this in order to help myself get off of it, because I knew a doctor wasn't going to allow me to. And maybe that was a fear because of what I'd experienced in my childhood and the control that my mom used doctors as a proxy to control me. So it's quite possible that a doctor would have helped me. I just decided not to go for it. I used the help of a guy I had on my podcast, I think even twice or three times. He's a doctor of sociology, Dr. Robert Harris. He has done immense research in nutrition, and he is a mentor to men. He's a coach for men that helps them with nutrition and leadership and a lot of other things. He is an amazing guy, and he managed his own Parkinson's symptoms using nutrition alone and no medication. So I used him as a guide to help me get off my medication and get to a place where I am healthy, where I'm immensely healthy right now. In the past few years, I've been immensely healthy, and thank fucking God that I met him as well to help me get off my medication. That was my choice to get off my medication. He just helped. I sought advice from him, thankfully. So I didn't ask any doctor to help me because I didn't trust that a doctor would want to help me. So as I got off my medication, my body was in an intense state of inflammation, and most nights, thankfully I was living alone, most nights I was curled up in the fetal position in a bathtub, screaming for at least an hour every single night for, I would say, the better part of a year, maybe like 6-7 months at least. Most nights I would curl up in the bathtub, scream, just fucking scream. And I hope the neighbors didn't hear it. Maybe they did, but it doesn't matter now because that was years ago. I'm 28 now. This was when I was 21/22. And it was just fucking hell. I had shared this with somebody who was a recovering heroin addict. He was not currently using, he hadn't used for a while, but he'd experienced heroin withdrawal, and he told me that he wouldn't wish my experience on his worst enemy, and that it was worse than his experience in heroin withdrawal. And I've never been through heroin withdrawal, never taken heroin, but I will take his word for it. That my experience with getting off the Seroquel and the Prilosec, that was even worse. Actually, Prilosec acts on your proton pump. It's a proton pump inhibitor. I guess I'll go into that. Proton pump in your stomach, it essentially makes your stomach acidic, and it's made to treat acid reflux, where the acid comes up, heartburn, and on a long-term basis, not a short-term. It doesn't act short-term. It takes a while to kick in, so it's a long-term basis. And I'd been on that since I was 7. Like I'd taken it since I was 7. So this was actually another reason why I would throw up a lot, because what happens is now your stomach is less acidic, which means it doesn't stop the acid from coming up. It just makes the acid less acidic. But what that means is that you don't digest food as well. And what that means is that your sphincter, the opening to your stomach, is going to malfunction because your stomach is not working as well. It's not doing what it's supposed to because the acid is not as acidic as it should be because you're taking Prilosec. So over time, what happened with me is that it got worse. The acid was less acidic, but it would come up a lot more often. And there were a lot of mornings I would throw up. I just throw up. There's no particular reason. I would just throw up. And my heartburn was constant. It was really bad. It was really, really bad. And then when I got off of that, my stomach would get it just wouldn't work. It would just it was tied up in knots. I would always have cramps and extreme stomach pain, and I would actually bleed out of my butt, out of my asshole, because my intestines weren't working right. It was really bad. But I had to go through this year of fucking hell, and I wasn't getting any sleep because Seroquel, it puts you in this kind of light, shitty sleep. You get this light, shitty sleep, but you don't, at least I did. You get this light, shitty sleep, and then I was getting off Seroquel. So not only was I getting this light, shitty sleep, but I was also on an inconsistent dose that wasn't regulated by a doctor. And that fucked up my sleep even more, and I basically had a year with no sleep. My histamine's going all over the fucking place, causing inflammation everywhere and everything. And oh fucking Christ, memory full, you piece of shit. Memory's full on this fucking piece of shit. So I guess I'm using the fucking the thing from the camera, the fucking fuck that crap. I'll have to take the shit off there. Oh, that's frustrating. I'll use the microphone on the camera, and then I was also, my stomach was malfunctioning and I wasn't able to digest things. So it was a year of fucking hell. And so this is about me opening up, but I also want to dive deeper into my past and pull some lessons out for y'all, because it's very important for me to share and help you guys figure out how to take this and use it to apply to your life. How do you, I want to be a guide for you. I want to be a father figure, if you will. Joe, how do you live a good life? And then for me to be able to give you some answers to help you from my experience, from my research, from my talking with people, and from going through all this hardship, from going through what it was essentially a year of fucking hell. I will tell you that there's a prayer, and I'm not Christian. I'm Jewish, but for me, that is a heritage. It's not a religion, and I can explain that in another video because it's 100% true. Being a Jew is a heritage because what defines you as a Jew is that my mom's Jewish. If your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish. That's it. But to go deeper into this, there's this prayer called the Serenity Prayer. You might have heard it. It's God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I would repeat that to myself. I would repeat that to myself every single day, and every moment that I was feeling these intense physiological issues with my body. I would say that to myself, and I would mention, like, hey Joe, like this is what's going on. You can't control this. You can control how you react. It's a very Stoic principle. It's also a very Buddhist principle. I did a video on that a while ago. I'm not going to find it, but it's important to see that. It's important to be like, okay, I can't control this. This is what's going on. I can control how I react. I can control what meaning I put to it. I can control how much focus I put on it, but I can't control the fact that it's happening. It's happening to me. Let me figure out how I'm going to react. So that was very freeing for me to have that prayer to ground me, and it's something that even if you're doing well, it's a great quote to have, because like I like girls, and I'm currently dating, and one of the things that you find out is girls are pretty flaky. If you go and you talk to a lot of girls and you get numbers, you get dates, you'll find that the majority, it depends. I mean, it depends. There's also things you can do to mediate this, but girls are pretty flaky. A lot of them will flake. If I'm just gonna say I can get into the nuances of it, but to simplify it, a lot of them will flake, and that's just a fact, because especially if you're meeting girls like out in the world and they're kind of strangers, then you're just a dude that comes into their life, and they like, why should they pay attention to you if you like approach them in a grocery store and you started talking to them? Then why should they care about you? You're just, in your life, you're like, I'm the protagonist. Like, of course she wants to care about me. Like, I want her to care about me, but like, to her, you're just an extra in her movie. And it doesn't make any sense for you to expect that from somebody. So you'll find that even if you had a great interaction with a girl, there's a lot of times where she's just like, oh, like, I don't, whatever. Like, I don't want to see this guy. And that, in those moments, which is in the moments of like a lot of guys who want to go out there and date women, you can easily get like worked up about, oh, this girl flaked on me. Or you could be like, well, I can't control that. I'm not going to like ask her out again. I'm not going to like try to reschedule, because that's something that I won't really accept. And if we started dating, like, I don't want to date somebody who's going to flake. That's fucking stupid. You don't have to like keep chasing her, but you also don't have to let it affect you. You don't have to let it like pull you out of your center. You don't have to let it like tear you down. You don't have to let it make you sad, because now like you're toppling over because of this other person. Like, why are you so invested in her if you've never even like gone on a date or like met her or had sex or anything? Like, why are you so invested in her? So that serenity prayer, I would say, is a really deep lesson from my my year of hell. That serenity prayer and that concept is useful in everyday life, in dating girls, in photo shoots. I do photo shoots, and that's not totally. I would say that's not totally a good analogy, because that's not totally a good analogy. Let's say that it's not totally a good analogy, but not for that particular one. But for dating girls, for applying to jobs, for building up a business, there's a lot of things that you can't control. For traveling, there's a lot of things you can't control, especially for traveling. You can't control a lot of things, and you have to let the things you can't control go. And you have to accept that they happen. But the things you can change are your reaction, how much you focus onto something, and the meaning that you put on that. And all those three things, your action, the meaning you put on something, and the way you focus on it, those you can control, and those are more than enough to control your life in the long term. You can't control your life in the short term, but in the long term, you can control your life, and that's what really matters. Another thing I learned from my year of hell is that there are times when we are just in a horrible, horrible place, and there's nothing we can do about where we're at. And it's not about where we're at. I was actually running at one point, and I was learning calculus at the time. I was graduating from, I got my associates with academic honors, and I was graduating, and I decided that, I had this idea. I was learning calculus. I went through Calc 3, and I was learning all about all this, and I realized that, calculus is about, I'll just try to make it as simple as possible. Some of my viewers are really good at math and love calculus, and some of them aren't, because this isn't a math channel, so I run the gamut of a lot of you are fucking better than me at math, and I'm pretty damn good, and a lot of you can't even add 1 + 1, and that's okay, because this isn't a math channel. So if there's a graph where there's a curve, right, then what's the slope of it? Well, it depends on the point. At this point, it's kind of going a little bit like that, and the slope's kind of maybe 1.2 or 0.5 or whatever. And then if you're at here, it's going like that. At that point in the curve, it's a lot more steep. So maybe the slope's 7, right? So the slope changes. And so in Calc 1, you learn that you can calculate the slope at each point of a curve, the instantaneous rise over run the slope, right? And so I created this perfect analogy where in your life you're always at a point on a graph, and you can't control where you are, but you can control the direction you're going. It's not about where you are. Where you are has to do with what you did in the past few years, and you can't go in the past and change that. You right now are in a place that is a result of the past few years. You're not in a place that is a result of you can't change where you are. You can't change the past few years that got you here, but you can change which direction you're going in. And that's super fucking important. And that's more than enough to live a happy, fulfilling life. So that's one thing I understood from another thing I understood from this year of hell. And a third thing I understood is that I can fucking do anything. I can do fucking anything if I really decide at a deep level to do this. I'm going to explain that. I want to let you know in about 2.5 minutes, I'm going to have to jump this video because my camera is a photo camera and it only records up to 30 minutes of video. So I'm going to have to stop and start it and splice them together. So there's going to be a jump in a few minutes in case you're super focused. I don't want that to throw off your focus. But I learned, number 3 is I learned I can do fucking anything. I can do anything I want to do in life. If I really fucking at a deep level decide this is what I'm going to do, that I'm going to do this, and nobody can tell me not to. Let me see if this one, because this is another one that doesn't have memory full. Okay. Oh. Yeah. All right, we're gonna try to do this one. I decided that I was going to do it because, and I kind of had to brainwash myself in a way that I could, because for my whole life I had gotten the messages. Everybody told me that I was going to be dependent, that I was mentally ill, and that I was never going to be healthy or normal, and I always needed medication. And here I was trying to get off medication, going against everything anyone said, and I had to find my own way. I had to make my own belief that I could get off medication, because everybody around me told me I couldn't. In fact, my one of the special ed teachers made me write a letter about why I can't be off medication. What's good about medication? What are the bad things that happens when I'm off it, and what are the good things that happen when I'm on it? And my mom, I believe she sent that to me. I think she mailed it to me when I was getting off my medication. If I remember, I don't remember if she mailed it to me, or I don't remember exactly how. I think that's what happened. I think she mailed it to me when I was getting off my medication, when we had a conversation. And she sent that to me. So, yeah, it was pretty fucked up. And so I had to make the belief in myself, even though everybody around me was telling me I shouldn't be doing what I was doing. All right, I had to make the belief in myself And I fucking did. And I also had to make the motivation because I prepared myself for this because I was like, okay, I need to get to a place where I am off my medication. And that was like, I held on to that vision so fucking strongly because I was going through hell and I had to keep my mind on the light at the end of the tunnel because I was going through fucking hell. I described it to you and you weren't there. You're just hearing me describe it. And honestly, I don't remember, like I'm not feeling the emotions right now because it was so long ago that I just remember the memory of the memory of the memory of the memory of it because it was enough years ago where I'm not experiencing it every time I remember it anymore. I've remembered it enough and told it enough that I'm not in a place where I feel the feelings I was feeling. So even now, I don't feel the intense pain and anger and emotion that I know I was feeling back then. And you're just hearing my voice and I'm not even feeling it. So you can only slightly imagine what it was like, but it was like one of those like superhero movies where the hero has to like walk through fire and walk through like intense like fucking intense shit. And it's like they're hurting and they're like, no, but I have to save the world. Like, I don't care if I die, I have to save the world. And so I had to become comfortable. I convinced myself that like, okay, I know I can get off my medication, even though I know for a little bit the withdrawal is going to bring back the symptoms and I'm going to want to get back on the medication. I fucking know that I am going to be okay, that I will get through this. I know this for a fact. And I did. I actually convinced myself. I used some science, somewhat rightfully so. It wasn't completely accurate because I knew I just needed to believe it. I convinced myself that I needed to do it now. And if I said to myself, okay, so your brain, when it's 25, it gets more solid. And if you don't get off your medication now, then maybe you will actually need it because you've been developing with it since you were 10 years old. You've been developing with your medications in your system to the point where if you go to where you're like 25, you're going to actually need it and you won't be able to function without it. So you need to get off of it now. It's only going to get harder. Your brain is only going to get less plastic the further along you go in your life. So get off of it now. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. And like there's truth to those scientific things, but it was mostly just motivation. It's probably true. It would have gotten harder, but like I needed to push myself. I needed to like shove myself into the hell that I had to walk through. So it was like the third point is I decided that I found out that I can do fucking anything if I want it enough. And then I also just realized that you kind of have to motivate yourself and you have to find ways to trick yourself into being like, this is possible and it's necessary. Especially if it's harder. The harder it is, the more you have to narrow your focus onto what you can control and make reasons, like convince yourself, like brainwash, like sell yourself on this thing that you're doing. You have to sell yourself harder and use more emotions and more logic and more reason. Sell yourself harder, the harder the thing is going to be. I hope that this reached you. I hope this helped you. I've been opening up more recently in my videos because I want to connect with you guys. I want to show you I'm real. I want to bring out more of myself. A mentor that I'm working with, Andy from the Inner Winner Show. I'll put his channel in the description. I asked him, how do I connect to my audience? He does a really good job of being vulnerable about his depths, like the deepest parts of himself. He does a really good job about that. And he's... he talks openly about how in the past he had suicidal thoughts, and he talks openly about it on his channel and his podcast. So like, I'm not sharing anything that that he hasn't shared publicly to everybody, but he shares openly about how he's had suicidal thoughts, how he's like at some point like his struggle to like get out of deep depression, where he was jacking off for like 6 hours a day to porn, like hating his life. Now he has a sex life of a fucking god. And women, it's not like he's like using women at all. In fact, like he helps women a lot. He likes to mentor them and helps them with their life. He has a long-term girlfriend. They have sex together with other attractive girls, and she loves it. The girls love it. They keep coming back and enjoy it. And he's like, he's not one of those weird pickup artists that manipulates. He's all about upfront honesty. And it's just so fucking inspiring from this like sad, how he talks about who he used to be. Like, he was a loser, and he was and he's not like hard on who he was. Like, it's not like, oh, it's my fault. I mean, like, he is kind of like, he does give himself and other people tough love. But I asked him, because he's also very prolific. He's the reason that I'm doing this one-a-day project. Because he's doing a one-a-day project. He inspired me through that. He actually told me, I also coached with him, and he like told me to do that specifically. But I asked him during our last coaching call, I was like, hey, so how can I connect more to my audience? You do a really good job of that. He's like, be vulnerable. Tell the things that are uncomfortable to say, that you don't want to get out of your mouth, that like you're unsure about how people will receive it. And the more uncomfortable you are, well, now I'm also kind of going into what other mentors of mine are saying. Another mentor of mine was saying, like, the more uncomfortable it is, the more uncomfortable you are, like, pressing that publish button, the better, because that meant you were more vulnerable. So I'm kind of putting a couple of things together here. And so here I am, being vulnerable with you, because I want to connect with you. I want to share with you more of myself. I hope that comes across. And, I want to build this channel into something. I want to be a guide for people like you, so that I could share my experience, share like how do I get out of these hard moments in my life and build a vision of what I want, even if like I believe I'm going to be dependent my whole life, even if people have told me that I'm going to be sick, that I'm going to need them, and it doesn't have to be exactly like. This is a very niche, specific thing that doesn't happen to many people. What happened to me isn't very common, but the emotions and the patterns in that are pretty common. There are shitty families everywhere, and there are a lot of people that are unfortunately held back by extremely shitty family dynamics. People that are rich, people that are poor. Shitty family dynamics are not, like, it doesn't discriminate. Like, you could have very rich family, very well-off family, and they could still be shitty. Like, there's a lot of reports of really prominent like pillars of the community, and like they like fuck their kids. Like it's really fucked up. Like, it happens sometimes where like the priest, like, he goes home and he molests his daughter. Like, what the fuck? It's the fucking worst thing in the world. Or he molests his son. Like, it's the fucking worst thing in the world. These things happen, and they happen in the best of families. And I have had experiences of deep emotional abuse and manipulation, and physical. I mean, it is physical abuse to be like, you need to take these medications. Like, that's a physical thing. It was emotionally manipulative. I was emotionally manipulated to take them, but that's a physical thing that I have to do to my body. So in a way, it's sort of a form of physical manipulation. Physical abuse. It is 100% mental abuse, all that gaslighting and shit. Man, like, I will not go through that again. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. It was hard, man. It was hard as fuck. And I just hope that my experience can help you guys live good lives. Because the lessons, even though that's a very specific thing, the lessons from that can help everybody, because the lessons are universal, and the fact that they've been forged in fire make them even stronger when you can apply them to your life. Like the idea of how to be independent, how to create your own path, even though other people are trying to tell you not to, or even though like society has a different idea. All those are things that I've essentially had to go through hard mode in several areas of life about how do I build my own life? How do I build my own life that's important to me, even though everybody around me is telling me that that's not okay, or that's not perfect, or that's not how I should do things. I had to be stubborn. I had to go my own way. And it's funny because I always tell Andy, the guy from the Inner Winter Show, like, he's so stubborn. He's like, I'm going to do this, and nobody's going to tell me not to. Like, I'm going to have this specific type of relationship, and, like, everybody's telling me I'm insecure, that I should have, like, all these, that I should, like, want a girl I can have threesomes with. Like, you're insecure, or you're greedy, or, like, this, or, like, whatever. And he had to fucking go for it anyway, even though, like, he was like, am I insecure? Like, maybe I am, but, like, this is what I want. And there's anything wrong with that? Like, if the girls are happy, if I'm making them happy and they're cool with it, like, am I really doing anything wrong? Am I really being insecure? Like, there's all this intense, like, craziness that he had to go through. And I'm like, dude, like, I love how you're stubborn. How can I be stubborn? And then I realize, saying this, like, I have that same thing in me. And that's another thing that you kind of have to realize, is sometimes you admire somebody for something, but most of the time you either admire somebody for something because you want it and you want to be like that, or it's because you are like that and you're not really honoring yourself. And that's one thing I want to give myself credit for, is I am pretty stubborn and I will stick with a goal if it means enough to me. And I've proven that by getting off my medication when everybody around me, including a big part of myself, was saying, nope, you can't do it. You're going to always be dependent. And I actually went to a doctor later, like a couple years after I got off my medication. I'm like, hey, like, I just want to have some external validation. This is what I went through. Can you, like, look at me and make sure, like, I don't have brain damage from getting off the medication, that I didn't need, like, right now I don't need medication. I just want validation from you. And he, like, gave me a neurological evaluation and a psych eval, and was like, nope, you're fine. Like, you don't need it. I'm like, oh, it was such a relief, because I was like, for years I was worried that I'd given myself permanent brain damage with by that year of hell. And it was just so validating to get a medical professional that wasn't, like, manipulated by my mom to keep me on medication, to tell me, like, you know, Joe, it's okay. Like, based on science, based on my objective, like, medical evaluation of you, you do not need medication, and you did not inflict, like, getting off medication did not inflict permanent brain damage. You're fine. Oh, so this is really nice getting out of my shell, and being a little bit vulnerable with you. And hang in there, folks. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Don't let people manipulate you. Go your own fucking way. Go your own fucking way. If you were saying that kind of thing, go your own fucking way. All right, you have to say it in, like, a whatever the fuck accent that was. Go your own fucking way. Figure out what you want in life. Be that guy. Be that motherfucker that people are jealous of.